How intergenerational trauma affects Indigenous youth and paths to healing. Exploring the impact of ancestral and family trauma on Indigenous youth, and how understanding inherited pain can lead to healing and resilience. Understanding the impact of generational trauma on Indigenous youth. Hey, have you ever thought about how the past, really the distant past, can influence what someone experiences today? Especially when it comes to Indigenous youth, the effects of generational trauma are a huge part of their story, often hidden beneath the surface. Let me try to explain it in a way that makes sense. When we talk about generational trauma, we're looking at how painful experiences from previous generations don't just disappear. They get passed down, not necessarily through stories, but through emotions, behaviors, and sometimes even biology. This is known by a bunch of different names like intergenerational trauma, ancestral trauma, and transgenerational trauma. All these terms point to the same idea: trauma that didn't just affect one generation, but rewired the way families and communities function over time. For Indigenous youth, this is especially relevant. Many of their communities have faced traumatic events like forced relocation, cultural suppression, and boarding schools that attempted to erase their identities. Imagine the kind of deep family trauma that comes from these experiences. The pain from those times doesn't just disappear when the actual events end. It lingers. It's inherited trauma, emotional wounds that children inherit from their parents and grandparents, who themselves might have never fully healed. This multi-generational trauma can create a cycle where Indigenous youth grow up dealing with challenges like higher rates of anxiety, depression, substance abuse, and a sense of disconnection from their culture or themselves. But understanding this trauma is also key to starting to heal. It's about recognizing that what these young people are facing today is tied to a much larger story. There's actually a really insightful book called The Generational Algorithm. This book breaks down how inherited trauma shapes our emotional patterns and offers ways to rewrite those painful legacies. It's a great read if you want to understand not just the weight of these inherited wounds, but how communities and individuals can work towards healing. Family trauma: how past family experiences influence behaviors and emotional patterns. Inherited trauma: trauma passed down biologically or emotionally, affecting mental health. Multi-generational trauma: trauma sustained and handed down across multiple generations. One of the biggest hurdles is that Indigenous youth often feel caught between two worlds: the legacy of a painful past and a future they want to build for themselves. The trauma doesn't make it easy to trust, to feel safe, or to believe that their culture and identity are sources of pride rather than pain. But here's something hopeful. Awareness is growing. There are more conversations, more programs, and more support aimed at addressing this inherited trauma. Healing is definitely happening, and it's supported by revitalizing language, traditions, and community connections. These paths help youth reclaim their identity and rewrite the inherited stories of pain into ones of resilience. If you're curious to better understand these patterns, or maybe even want tools to help friends or family who might be dealing with this kind of legacy, The Generational Algorithm is a resource worth checking out. It not only explains the cycle of emotional inheritance, but also provides practical ways to break free and create new, healthier generational patterns. So next time you think about trauma, try to consider that it's not just a personal experience. Sometimes it's a story written by ancestors that still influences lives today, especially for Indigenous communities. And that understanding could be the first step toward real change. Want to learn more and take steps towards healing? Buy The Generational Algorithm now on Amazon and discover how rewriting emotional legacies can create a brighter future.